Hello and welcome back to The Art of Kyle Gilbo. Today I'm going to try something new. I'm doing a live drawing. So today we're drawing Spider Gwen on a 2.5 by 3.5 sketch card here. So I worked out some sketches here on just a loose piece of legal size paper and ultimately land on this sketch, which I'm going to draw onto here. And then I'm going to ink it and color it with Copic Markers live here. So you get my full live commentary and the problem solving of the drawing. So we're going to jump into it. So how I'm going to sculpt it, essentially I start with the head, generally the upper part, and then pop it down into the chin and kind of like the jawline here. Then I bring it up, and this gives you the general idea, shape of the human head. Just drop a neck in there, just lining up the middle of the face, make sure I want to have the eyes in the right spot that I want. And then the eye line comes in here. You can drop the nose line in halfway between this, the eye line and the chin. I don't really need the mouth line just because it's covered up by her mask, but it'd be halfway between these 2 points. So pop out. Gwen Stacy has pretty pronounced cheekbones here and here, so just have it pop out a bit more than normal. Cuts back in and down to the chin, and then have the chin cut over here to the neckline, and that's pretty much all that I need to do for head shape, because her hood comes in like this and then just kind of covers up most of the rest. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna pop this over. There's a little hook that's at the top of the hoodie she wears, and then it comes over, and then we'll have it cut here because is where it hits her head, then cuts again, a little peek here to show where a bunch of fabric comes in. And then since this follows this, her head, you have the scoop down. I'm going to add a few lines there for definition, and then the hood shoots back out, just catching wind and whatnot. So I have this come down, and then when you have this go down, we have a cut. It kind of meets up down here, so I'm just kind of just cut back in. A few lines here, a few lines there. Have this cut over, and then because this is where it bunches up around the bottom as it hits the rest, her shoulder blades, just have a bit of bunch up fabric there. To cut the nose in, just have a few lines here. I'm going to rough those out. I'm going to add some gray with Copics just underneath the nose, add a bit more defined shadow. For her eyes, it's really up to you how you draw the spider eyes. People like Todd McFarlane has a very large one, eye that goes below the nose. And then different artists like Todd Knock and J. Scott Campbell have it where it still is above the nose. So I'm just going to cut in like this. I'm just going to make it a bit bigger because she looks a bit angry right now. Don't want full-on anger. Maybe determinism or seriousness in a situation. But the spider books are very upbeat, so I kind of want a bit more personality into it. Or at least awareness of the situation. So I'll lift those eyes up a bit more. Just because the spider eyes actually show the full range of emotion between the eyes and the eyelids, and then the bit of the cheeks. Whereas you can break that down to a normal human's head into these different parts. With people like Spider-Man or Spider-Woman, any spider mask character with these large eyes, what ends up happening is this is where their eyebrows are, this is their normal eye, and then this is the top of their cheeks, where I lined up here. So really the eyes are where all the emotion is conveyed, because it's covers most of the face. So what you want to do is port all the emotion information into the eyes, and the size and the shape of them, just to show what the current character's emotional state is, because it's the only real emotion you get out of a spider character because of the full face mask. And that works with everyone. People like Batman, a lot of artists, kind of like, I guess Greg Capullo is the best example, just because he draws a full black mask. What he would do is there'd be the little slit triangles for his eyes, but really what he does is they actually change shape. If it can be a circle or kind of a bit more reverse triangles, so it's shaped the other way to show a bit more surprise or different angles. So it's not really locked down in, I guess, reality, where it's a hard slit, kind of like the rest of the cowl is very hard and kind of like a hard plastic or a helmet material. Just cleaning up some extra lines here. Oh, excuse me. So one thing, you can't see it, but I hold it up to the light. Hold it like this backwards so you can see, and that's a good way to get another look at your art. It gives you different perspectives so you can see if something looks off, you'll see it in the reflected side, because your eyes kind of get used to how the one way a drawing looks. So if you look at reverse, sometimes it points out little differences that you don't see because you're staring at the same picture the whole time. Now I'm cutting in the inks here. I'm working with Pigma Microns. This is 03. 03 is my preferred size for any outlining, and then for small details, I do usually a 01, but if it's in eyes, I use a 0.005, the smallest size. So with line weights, just cut in where any shadows occur. So I have the light coming from here and down. So what I'll do is, this is where underneath the hood, a lot of shadow is taking place because his head's still inside. It comes out, takes a bit more light here, but on the corner, it starts to cut underneath her eye. So it gets a bit heavier, thins back up, and then again on the chin here, or on the cheek, it gets a bit more shadow casted. Around the lips and the chin, because it sticks out, it's not very much, but then the underside gets a heavy shadow. Because it's A, still in the hood, and B, it's not getting any light from the top light source. So I'll just cut back. Bottom of the whole jawline is essentially the same. As it's tucking further into the hood, you really lose a lot of the light that would be coming from the upper side. So I'll just cut in, and then I have her face like that. I'm going to cut the cheekbones in with some Copic markers later, so I'm just going to leave that empty for now. Here's the neck, and then I drop a big cast shadow from her head underneath her neck to give it a lot of depth and really push the head off of the neck, just to make the features on top stand out a bit more. So again, big shadow here, and then it thins out across this big area just because it hits a lot of the light. And then as it comes back down, I'm going to put a big shadow on the edge to give it a bit more life and some energy back into the outer side. So what I'm probably going to do is I'm going to color in the back a light electric blue, and then the inside for hood here is going to be a bright purple or pink with probably some blue accented webs. Or I might just leave them white. I'll just see how it contrasts. Right here. Cut this over. These long lines are things I have problems with a lot, and a lot of people I know who are artists have troubles with these. So I do little strokes just to keep it long, because traditionally you pull curves and you push straight lines, but with ink and markers, it's kind of tedious for me just to try and pull it off in one line over and over again. It's pretty taxing to have that much focus into one line. So if you have kind of a sketchier line, but you can accent it with shadows back further, you can kind of stress out the line and kind of give it a better, kind of more life than one straight line and having to put more thickness into it later. I don't like having to pull a really long line, because if it messes up a little bit, then whiteout has to come out, or even a whole piece is ruined. I don't really want that situation on my hands. Thick cast shadow over on the corner here is where it hits a lot of shadow. I can't tell if I dug really hard in with a pencil or is my markers running out, because it's kind of drying up and it's not really laying down as smoothly as I'd like. Especially on the corner here, but that might just been a high stress area where I ran over a few times with the pencil, and then because of the lead, it kind of dips, the ink dips into the curve and doesn't really grab on as nicely. So I'll have this go by. Don't really need to worry about any of these here that affect the top side of the hood. They more fall on the shoulder, where this is still in the air above. So the wrinkles only start down here. Drop this guy in. Put the shot out a bit more. Sometimes on these smaller pieces you can kind of give up realism for a bit of a stylistic flair. Things like on the corner here wouldn't really be this thick of a shadow, but just giving another bounce of thickness to a line really brings a piece together, because it gives you the eye more to bounce between. If they all share the same line weight, like a heavily lighted picture with a lot of spread, just kind of dropping no shadows down, it gets really lifeless to look at, because the thickness of the line is really what an inker brings to a drawing. If you haven't seen the movie Chasing Amy, it's directed by Kevin Smith, who's written some comic books and a few episodes of The Flash and a bunch of other things. He's a really cool guy. And what happens is an inker for the book, the two main characters are a penciler and an inker for a comic book, and the inker gets called out at a show as just a tracer, because they just go over the lines that the penciler lays down, which is a funny scene overall, where he gets into a fight with some guy who keeps calling him a tracer and gets a whole crowd of people to just be chanting tracer at him. But really, inkers add a lot of definition of line that a penciler can't really go over, just because a pencil is so light. Even adding thickness to those lines, it doesn't really give the right feel that you would want. So that's where the ink and the really steady hand. Have you ever seen Scott Williams' videos of inking, or any inker on Instagram like Sandra Hope or Jonathan Glapian? They have videos on their Instagrams of them inking, and it is impeccable, the steadiness of their hand. That I have a pretty fidgety hand, so I won't be able to really get the same line effects with a brush or a nib that they can get, and it's just incredible. So if you ever have that argument of they're just tracers who don't need the same skills as an artist, then I challenge you to go look at some inking videos, and you'll see the confidence of line width and the weights they can add in are just incredible. So I'll drop in some shadows here, I'll link that up. Not much room for hatching in this sense, where hatching is the bunch of lines like kind of like this, but a bit closer to provide shading. I'll have it on the nose, but it's really not a necessary property in something so blank like Spider-Gwen, where it's a very bright white costume. Hatching tends to add a lot of darkness to a character, so it's really prominent in characters like Batman, just because it really lends to his whole shadow persona and shadows. The darkness and the grays of his suit are really accented by it. I can add a bit here in the shadows, because I'm going to be covering up still with gray Copics, so it's not really important to have a bunch of them. I'm going to have this, just accent its wrinkling, make this lifted up, and then just drop a shadow onto this side. Alright. I'm going to go the eyes. I can still do the eyes in black. This is really a design choice. A lot of, even in the main Spider-Gwen book, they don't actually have a hard line that outlines her eyes. It's actually just outlined by the colors I'm going to put around. There's a bunch of purples and pinks that outline it instead of putting this hard line. But the artist David Baldion, he was on Web Warriors. He drew the Spider-Verse Web Warriors book that was out for a 12-issue mini, and I loved his design for Spider-Gwen. It was a very cartoony feel, and he did have a hard line outside in black to bold out Spider-Gwen's eyes, and then the colors afterwards, and I thought it looked great. So I've been adding that into when I draw Spider-Gwen, just because I like the extra line, the solid line, to help map out her eyes. It just adds a nice effect for me. And one thing that doing just the color outline, what happens is you either do it digitally. You can do it on traditional, obviously, but it's a lot of erasing the pencil underneath and doing it, because with Copics, the color will smear the pencil, and it was a really gross gray tone to the drawing. I'm going to grab my 01 Pigma Micron and just add some drops underneath the nose there. Just seeing if anything else needs fleshing out. Don't think so. I think that's pretty much good for here. And I usually don't stay completely faithful to what I dropped down the inking phase already when I go into colors, because I can just bring out the ink again and fix anything, especially when you see with a pencil still underneath. So I'm dropping in with a FABER-CASTELL dust-free eraser. I actually just picked these up for the first time and I really like them. It's a really good eraser. Either that or I use Staedtler Mars plastic erasers that are just the traditional you get at any office supply store. But this one's a specific art one, and I really like this one. It's just a nice look, and it really drops minimal dust, like they say. It really just these bunched up little guys. But it doesn't really... that's a lot better than having a bunch of flakes around. So dropping this, especially when I get all the pencil off, because when I do the background color, as I said before, the graphite tends to smear. So there we go. And that's when I go back in, I fix a few things that the graphite covered up in the inking phase that kind of made the lines less smooth than I would have liked. So just do a few touch-ups, and then I'm back, and then I'm into inks, or into Copics. So if you haven't read Spider-Gwen's book, I highly recommend it. The art's a very different take. It's not as much, you know, hard, very... I don't want to say rough, but it's a very stylized book, and the colorist on that book is great. All the purples, the blues, the yellows in the palette that they use is just such a treat to look at. Really complements the artwork well. For the webs that go inside here, I don't really need to do those because I'm going to be doing those in a Jelly Roll eraser, Jelly Roll white gel pen later. So I don't really need to lay them out here because I'm going to be doing them freehand later. So there. Roll over and grab my Copics. Going to be using cool grays here. Alright, let's see how these treat me. They're on my other desk, so I gotta roll over. Let's see how dark Cool Gray 1 goes down. Not very dark. So then I'll accent it with Cool Gray 3. And then I want to hit her cheekbone here. And then I fade that into the back with some Cool Gray 1. So that was one thing with the, I'll try to avoid the lines because it adds a really hard... I can just white that out or something because that's pretty hard shadow created. Just off of a... The ink didn't fully dry up yet, so that's annoying. But we'll just keep trucking along and we'll fix that later as we go. So I'm adding the shadow here. I'm going to add independent shadows to here to the eye, so I'm going to exclude it from any shading I'm doing with the Copic grays of the hood shadow, just because it's a bit more stylized effect that kind of helps it out a bit. I'm just going to try to blend these together. There we go. With the hood, still avoid a lot of hard grays because it is a white hood, so I only put it in the areas like here, underneath the hood, and then in the shadowed parts. Just keeps a lot of vibrancy in the drawing. And the vibrancy will really come out in the colors later here that I drop down the blues and the pinks in the background, and then the pinks and the purples around her eyes. And I am by no means a encyclopedia for how to use Copic markers, but hopefully you can get some tips, and then I can kind of improve over the course of making these live draws where I can kind of dissect my process a bit better. That come up here, hit so light, and then we'll drop the eyes down here. I'll start with a purple. I feel like I do Spider-Gwen's eyes different every single time I draw her. I changed from doing a lot of different scattered versions to different little plot dots. And ultimately, it's whichever one blends the best. Do I have a darker purple? I do. There we go. I'll have in the description all the ones all the markers I've used, just for each effect. Okay. So there's that. I'm going to draw the inside of the hood now. Let's go with this guy. Some bright purples just to accent it nicely. Broad strokes, because if you go over a Copic marker with the same color a few times, they start to darken the color. And you want to avoid that when you're dropping the base tone, especially in a really large area here. So you just kind of do long, broad strokes, prevent them from mixing, and then I'm going to go back over and add some darker shadows where the hood is darkest. So go here, and the Copics end up looking a bit different once they dry, so you don't want to go too much in what you see and so experience with Copics goes a long way because you kind of know how they'll fall with one another and how many layers of a color really completes the shade that you want. Alright, so that's good. I'm going to add a little drop here because it looks a bit odd having that drop there. And two, do it like that transition. So I'll just add a few more darks to this side of her hood, just because no light's going to be coming down here, and it makes the whole gray tone look a bit nicer, opposed to having separated shadows. In some cases, works very well. So we've got to grab the background blue. Let's try. Yeah, that looked great. So there's actually a new marker I just picked up, Robin's Egg Blue, BVOO, and I've actually really liked it. I still have a R24, and I use that for most of my backgrounds, but it really doesn't pop many characters. But I might do a transition background. I haven't decided yet. Just because I'm doing a white outline with a gel pen and a white webbing, so that might not look too great against a very, very bright blue. So we'll see. And then I'm going to add the white lines inside the hood just to see how that works. And if I need to add blue to it, and then I'll make the background blue a bit darker. Okay, so that's the base, let it dry up. And then we're going to grab, where did I put it? The basket. A Jelly Roll 08 white gel pen. This thing I just grabbed up at any old art store, and I've had pretty good success with it. So you don't mess with the Colonel's recipe, I guess. Have it all shooting out because the origin of the web would be somewhere in the middle, so you have them all angled out from that point, and then I'm going to add the webs connecting all these strands after I get them all laid out. Because it's circular, you add a little curve to it just to help the eye kind of absorb the information. And then they kind of get tighter along the bottom here until they eventually just curve down. Okay, and then we'll just go follow one strand all the way down. have it curve in a bit, and then I'm going to add another one that starts there, and then one closer into the face. Okay. And then one more guy there. So that looks pretty good. The back's really bright, as I predicted. So I'm going to maybe drop some sky blue like I was talking about earlier down. I'm not gradient it though. We'll see. Because these two won't gradient very well together. So to make Spider-Gwen pop with her bright colors, you want to have a darker background. Because it might be a bit too much bright at one point. Just gonna outline the whole background in blue, in the sky blue. There, and then I'm going to make the inside webs in her hood the robin's egg blue that I was using earlier, just to make a nicer little bright spot. Don't knock things over, Ray. My cat is over on my desk with my computer, just messing with the other Copics I'm not using right now. So that's nice. It's gonna not cover up all the white because the white adds a bit of a glisten to it. A bit more of a sheen, honestly. Especially for a stylized effect like the blue webs, it kind of takes away if you make the whole thing blue. Where's that purple I was using? So that one's looking good. I'm gonna start dropping the webs in on the background. Don't knock over the scissors. That's asking for it. So I'm gonna make little spider webs, just originating out of one spot and then bum bum bum. Normally in my other spider pieces, I've done kind of this design on the background, but because I have it all, it's in the hood already, so it's a bit repetitive. Don't. She jumped off my desk the second I looked over at her, so I guess she knows she's doing it wrong. She just doesn't want to stop. Boom, boom, boom. Let's just web up to the corner here. And then drop a few more. And then for these, I'm just dropping them at an origin point. They're a bit stylized. I'm not like pulling up reference for a spider web. I'm just dropping lines and then connecting all of them with the surrounding web. You can kind of connect them up to the other webs if you see fit. That was the marker drop falling on the floor, but I'm over it. And the last little finishing bits here. Add a few more here, just so it falls through entirely. That's looking good. I'm just gonna polish out the eyes, make sure nothing bleeds in. And then where's my C1? Underside of her eye, just to add a bit to the curvature. And then I'll thicken out the outside. I don't really need to do it in Copic 3 because it's a bit too hard since this isn't a lens. Alright, that's looking pretty good. Yeah, I'd say it's about done. Just drop the signature. I didn't leave a lot of room in the webs, but I'll just drop it there. So I'd like to thank you guys all for watching. So that was my first live draw. Hopefully it went well. Today is the 11th? Yeah, probably. That's about it. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'm hoping to get a few more live draws out. I'm going to have a scan of this at the end of the video so you guys can see it. So thank you again and have a good day.